Hello and welcome back to Streaming Media Connect 2024. I'm Steve Nathans-Kelly, Editor-in-Chief of Streaming Media, and you've joined us for our Tech Talk. First thing I want to do before we get started is thank our platinum sponsor for this week, Native Frame, and our Associate Editor, Tyler Nessler, will now share a silent film from Native Frame. Take it away, Tyler. Hey, thanks, Tyler. And so welcome to our Tech Talk, brought to you by and featuring a conversation with AJA. It's not Aja, it's not Asia, it's AJA. Before we get started, a few quick housekeeping notes. We will be giving away a $50 Amazon gift card at the end of the session. And the first person who correctly guessed the name of the tune you were just hearing and the artist playing will be the winner. But you must be present to win. So stick around and listen for your name, and we'll get you the gift card. The chat is open, so chat in the chat. And if you have questions, please ask them in the Q&A. And sessions from all 3 days are now appearing on the Streaming Media YouTube channel. Link is in the chat. And we will be back right here November 12th to 14th for our next Streaming Media Connect event. The call for speakers is open now, so send us your ideas. Link for that is also in the chat. I would now like to welcome to the stage Paul Turner, Product Manager at AJA Video Systems. We're going to have a chat about elevating the quality of your video stream with the AJA HELO Plus. It's an advanced H.264 streaming and recording device that supports dual channel encoding, 2 simultaneous streams, and recording to local storage devices. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, welcome, Steve. Welcome. Welcome to all of you. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, or good night, depending on where you are around the world.
Yeah, it's good to see you. So let's get right into it. I'm gonna throw up a little picture of the HELO Plus here. Just see if I can find it. There it is. So this is what we'll be talking about today. Paul can actually show you that it almost fits in his hand. So it is a compact device.
Yes. In fact, I have one right here.
There it is.
Front and back. There's the front. There's the back. There's the top. AJA.
It's even more legible when you have it right set up.
There's an Australian version in there as well.
All right, so let's get right into it. So let's start off by just telling people some basics about it. So the HELO Plus is a standalone appliance. So what are the advantages of using a standalone appliance for producing streams versus a computer and a capture card?
So I mean, again, for everybody, this is the box. This is the entire thing. The things that you get with a hardware solution like this, an appliance like this, is obviously the ease of setup. You don't have to worry about having a laptop or a computer and the screen. You don't necessarily have to have a particularly technically savvy operator. The unit itself has a pair of buttons on the front, one conveniently labeled record, one conveniently labeled stream. So in some of our markets, the operators are not particularly skilled. And so not to have a web UI and a laptop there, you can just press the buttons and the machine will do what you tell it to do. You can even lock the buttons for what it's worth so that you press record and it will stream and record at the same time. So ease of setup is pretty simple. Again, we've got video and audio, and we have an Ethernet connection on the back. And for a lot of cases, that's it. You bring your video in, you take your stream out, and if you've already set up your credentials with your CDN, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, you can just press the button and away you go. So that's a pretty significant one. obviously, again, ease of use is an important thing, but not all customers want to have a simplistic UI like that. So, of course, we do offer the opportunity to control the device in a more sophisticated manner if you connect it to a laptop or a computer. Now, to be very clear, the laptop and the computer are not doing any of the streaming. They're just there to actually go in and control the machine. We lock out most of the features when you're actually streaming to make sure that you don't do something that would blow up your stream. But in terms of setting the machine up initially, that's a pretty important point. Anything that you would want to set up on the stream, you can do over the web UI. Anything you would want to do operationally, you can do by pressing the buttons on the front of the machine, or indeed, we've actually launched a Stream Deck control capability recently. So that's Stream Deck, not Steam Deck. They're different things. So the Stream Deck is that little push button control panel. And you can basically run a live stream directly from the machine through the Stream Deck integration. And one other thing that you get when you've got an appliance, of course, you don't ever have to worry about Update Tuesday, where a new update comes in and then you have to spend a little while reconfiguring your I/O so that your streams will once again perform to the level that you expect them to. And one other thing I should mention about the box, I mean, again, I've shown it to you here. There are no fans on the machine at all. It's totally passively cooled. So there's no noise to worry about should you be operating it from the presenter's desk.
That's great. It's great. So yeah, so I mean, so 2-button operation is an option, but I mean, you can do everything from configuring the device, configuring your stream, picking the CDN where you're going to, the destination for your stream, to you can even do titling and so forth, right, in the web interface.
Yeah. So the machine, the machine's very powerful on the production front. It'll allow you to do picture-in-picture on its inputs. There are 2 inputs. There's an SDI input and an HDMI input, so you could use a PTZ camera and an SDI camera, or a computer with a PowerPoint presentation, for example. Both of those inputs have their own picture-in-picture processor. So you can get dual streaming of those inputs. Setting those up are something you do before the show, and that's where you'd use the web interface, because you've got a nice graphic interface to figure out where you're going to put the images. But to actually run the machine itself, you just hit it from the front panel there.
Yeah, that's great. And so who would you say is the target market for the HELO Plus?
Well, it's very hard to pigeonhole streaming into verticals, because streaming's everywhere. And so realistically, we have these machines in use across the world in all sorts of applications. The original target applications were house of worship, education, some government work. That's where we originally expected to put these things. That's where the whole idea of the front panel control came in. So you look at something like a house of worship or an educational facility, and those operators, in the case of house of worship, that's a volunteer. They come in for the day of the presentation, the sermon, whatever, and they know nothing about video. But they can go ahead and press the stream button or the record button and have the machine perform its functions without any background knowledge whatsoever. Same for education. There's a lot of cases where that operator will be a student. And again, you just want somebody to come in and press the buttons and make the thing work. It's expanded quite dramatically into sporting applications. We have a lot of instances where some of the features of the product, which I'm sure I'll talk about later, play in multi-language, that sort of stuff. Even medical. This was somewhere, if I'm being honest, I never expected the machine to go. But we have a number of teaching hospitals that use a HELO Plus to stream from the operating room to the lecture hall, so people can actually not take part in, but participate in the procedure and learn firsthand what's going on. So it's pretty much across the board. We have college sports, we have government work, we have education, house of worship, broadcast, even in some cases production on site, because again, it's silent, so you don't have to worry about having it at your location. You may want to stream what you're producing over to a director who may not actually be co-located with the actual production at the time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's amazing, how critical streaming became for houses of worship, in the pandemic, and
Mhm.
and the possibility of doing that remote. I mean, it sounds like a joke, but the first week of the pandemic, I had a priest, a minister, and a rabbi all call me and ask me how to stream,
Mhm.
and they all became TV show producers, basically
Yeah.
for devices like this obviously made it a lot simpler to do these things. But yeah, so. And I know it's being. I think I saw something about it about the HELO Plus being used more in esports too. Is that right?
Yeah, we have, again, the beauty of it is the machine has this HDMI input. And by the way, you don't have to worry about things like timing, which is usually a problem when you interact with SDI and other sources. You want to have the same frame rate, and there's only so much we can do with a frame rate difference, but you don't ever have to genlock any of the inputs. There's frame syncs on each input. So as long as you've got a stable frame, and actually, if I'm being honest, in a lot of cases, the HDMI input's frame rate is not so important actually, because even though the computer may not be producing exactly 5994 or 2997, it's most often that HDMI source is being used for a PowerPoint presentation, so they're still images. But we do take care of all of the technical details of gen locking for you. And so, yeah, things like esports, where some material may be coming from a PTZ camera that's looking at the arena, or in the house of worship market, where you may have a wide shot camera and a close-up of the lyrics to the hymn or parts of the sermon. All of that is co-processed in the machine at the same time. And we have these things called layouts, which are easy to explain and kind of ties into what we were saying earlier about titling. A layout is a combination of a color background that's generated in the machine, an SDI source, anything up to HD 60, 1080p 60, the HDMI source, and a graphics layer. And we layer all of those in a priority layering engine in the machine. One of the unique things about our system is that you're not forced to only having the PowerPoint in the upper right-hand corner or the upper left-hand corner. These are completely positionable any way you want them to be. So it's very common now as streaming has become more sophisticated, is to have two images at the same time and a graphic at the bottom. And the beauty of the machine is it will allow you to switch between, you have 10 layouts to use live. And so you can switch between those things real time in the streaming box. So it's not a production switcher, and we don't ever claim it to be such. But for a lot of house of worship and educational facilities, we've just upped the game in terms of the production value that they can get. And production value equals eyeballs.
And you can do that AV switch right on the box. Is
Yeah,
that
well, you do that with the Stream Deck. There's not enough
Stream?
real estate on the front of the machine
Yeah.
for you to actually be able to get in there. You can do it over the web interface from a laptop or a desktop. And again, to be very clear, the UI from this is a web interface. You don't need an application on the desktop. We have people using tablets to control this machine. Again, the UI is actually served up from an internal web server that's in the machine, which means you can have multiple people in control of the machine at the same time, should you want to. You might have a director who wants override capability for choosing a particular shot. But you absolutely can use the Stream Deck to switch between the layouts. And I show that all the time at trade shows. So you can get a simple, 15-button Stream Deck, which is what I actually have here at my desk. There's a 30-button Stream Deck that allows you to get to some other functions. But yeah, the Stream Deck becomes a shot box and those like that. So kind of tiering the control from very simple, just press the go button and away we go, all the way up to anything you might want to do with the box, you can do through the web UI, and then an intermediate where you get to control the things that you would want to change while you're physically on air. We don't let you do things that would potentially damage the stream, because again, a lot of our operators are not necessarily experts in streaming or SDI or HDMI timing and the like. So things that would cause you a problem, like arbitrarily switching the frame rate of the machine while you're in the middle of a stream, that would be a bad thing.
Oh yeah.
So we don't let you do that while the machine is actually streaming. You can do it beforehand, but when you tell it on air, it's on air, then it locks those sort of gotcha features out of the operation.
And it's a dual encoder device, right? So when you're configuring it beforehand, you could configure one bit rate for streaming and then a higher bit rate for a local recording. Is that?
Yeah, because that's the other thing about the machine now. It is not just a streamer. Again, I'm not quite sure how well this will show on the screen here, but there are two I/O connectors. One's an SD card, and one is a USB stick. And the machine will record whatever's going through it at the time of streaming onto the SD card or onto the USB stick, or, and this is a pretty cool feature, in real time over the network to an SMB share. And you get to choose two of those three for one as your main, one as your backup. But the bit rates for the recording and the streaming can be completely different. A lot of recordings, you're going to want to have a pretty high quality recording because it's kind of an archive of your presentation. So you may do 20 megabits per second of H.264 onto the recording media. There's not too many CDNs who are going to like you sending them 20 megabits per second. And so what's most common is people set up the streaming profile for 5 megabits per second, while the recording profile is set up for 20 megabits per second, for example.
Okay. Yeah, and so would you say there are any sort of unique problems that producers and users have that the HELO Plus solves that maybe other devices out there don't?
Sure. I mean, we've mentioned a couple of them as we've gone through. I mean, first of all, it is the reliability of the box. This is it. You plug it in, you turn it on, and you're good to go. It's an AJA product. So, we spend a lot of time trying to make sure that this machine is as bulletproof as you can make it. The reality is you can't make any product absolutely bulletproof. You don't control the network connectivity, that sort of thing. But in terms of the hardware platform, it's a very, very robust platform. Obviously, production value, we've mentioned the ability to do picture-in-picture on both sources at the same time. So we've got the customers who do side-by-side of two simultaneous videos with a lower third. It's very common in the case of education. You'll have the lecturer full size and the slides are somewhat reduced with you can get your lecture notes from here down at the bottom of the screen. Or maybe at some point in a presentation, it's more important to see the PowerPoint or the PTZ, whatever that source might be, full screen, with the presenter being small. So there's a lot of production value that you can get here. The recording, the recording, I shouldn't minimize the ability of the machine to record and optionally play back that recording. So we added a feature at the end of last year, which we call play to stream. And what play to stream does is it takes whatever recording you've made with the HELO Plus, and it will allow you to use that recording as the source to the playout. And that gives you immense flexibility. Imagine you're an educational facility and you've got one major lecture hall that you do most of your streaming from. So let's say at 10 o'clock in the morning, that lecture hall is being used for an economics lecture. And you know that as part of your value add, you want to stream that out to the outside world at the time of the lecture. But it would also be useful at maybe 2 o'clock to go ahead and restream it, send it out again as a stream for those people who couldn't attend at the original time. Well, play to stream will allow you to do that. You go ahead, you record exactly what you streamed at the 10 o'clock lecture, and you replay that recorded stream out at 2 o'clock. And again, the bit rate will be automatically adjusted for you so that your stream will be at something that the CDN doesn't dislike. The really cool thing here, though, is what are you going to do with that lecture hall when the machine is actually streaming out? Well, the machine will actually replay the play to stream and record at the same time.
Really?
So now the lecture hall itself could be being used at 2 o'clock for a lecture in organic chemistry. That can be being streamed out by the box. while it's simultaneously streaming out the previously recorded economics lecture. And it has no problem with doing the record and the stream at the same time. So, and of course, it could be live streaming. There's another choice that you could do for any combination of recorded or streamed media. The need to be able to edit sometimes your stream. So again, it's very common in a house of worship situation that at some point in time you want to edit down the original stream and make it available in some of the parish hall rooms for the Sunday school kids to come in and watch, for example. So you can actually go ahead and easily edit the material that you've recorded. So it's very flexible on that front. Now, the other thing that we've done recently is we added a second stereo pair to the audio. So the base unit has stereo audio in, either coming off of the SDI input or the HDMI input, or there's even a stereo analog input on the back. And you just choose which source you want to have as the audio input. Based on feedback from sports, we actually added a second stereo audio pair as an option to the box because not everybody wants it. And that's for things like home and away at a hockey game. It's highly likely that at a hockey game, you're likely to have an English home and away commentary, but also a French home and away commentary because the Canadians are mad for hockey. Same with soccer. You might have an English home and away presentation, audio presentation to go over the video on one service, and a Spanish home and away, because the machine will also, not only is it two inputs, but it will actually simultaneously stream to two different CDNs at the same time. So it's entirely possible for you to have an English service, which is the video plus English home and away, and a separate video service with a French home and away or Spanish home and away on there. And they can go to two different CDNs through two different interfaces, profiles, maybe SRT to one, maybe RTMP to the other. The machine will happily do that.
So you're streaming in two different languages, two different streams simultaneously. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that's an option, right, to have the second audio channel. So not everybody wants it, and I didn't want to burden the price of the machine with 4-channel audio, 2 stereo pairs for people who didn't need it. That's also true, by the way, for the play to stream, because not everybody wants or needs to be able to play back a previously recorded thing. So both of those are options. And again, the machine will actually allow you to test them out. You don't have to buy them right off the bat. And so there's an option in the machine, in the web UI, and you say, I'd like to trial that play to stream, please. And we give you 15 days to just try it. If it works for you, great. You can go ahead and buy a license on the machine and it will set it up. And if you don't, no harm, no foul. At the end of 15 days, that feature goes away and you carry on as you were. No watermarking on this, because I don't believe on a streaming device, you want to not see what that looks like once you've sent it through a CDN clean. So if you turn on the option for play to stream or the 4-channel audio, you get it fully functional for your 15 days.
Well, great. Yeah, any questions for Paul? Please put them in the Q&A. This is your chance. One thing we did talk about, in a kind of pre-discussion before we got started was SRT support. Can you just talk a little bit about that? How people are using, how that's integrated into the device and how people are using it?
Sure. SRT, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it stands for Secure Reliable Transport. And it's another streaming protocol that allows you to take material over. Generally, the purpose behind it was to allow you to take it over a non-secure, non-managed network. So within a facility, you own the network. Hopefully, you've got it firewalled so people can't come in and get to you, unless you're physically streaming out, in which case you put a tunnel through that firewall for the outgoing video. But if you try and send that material over the general internet, you have a couple of problems. The first one is that the internet is not secure, right? So you're going to want to encrypt this material. The other problem that you have with the internet, the general internet, is that it's not reliable. You have no control over the switches that the video will go through, none. And a huge number of network switches, when they get really busy, they will simply throw packets away. And that doesn't cause a problem for people who are interacting with a website with Amazon, or you're trying to take a look at a new pressure cooker. It doesn't matter, because what will happen is the browser will eventually say, well, I haven't had a response, I'll ask for it again. We don't have that in video. We have to put out one frame in one frame's time. And so that causes all sorts of problems. So SRT, it's an open source solution, but it covers both the need for reliability and the need for security by encrypting the video and also allowing for an out-of-band packet regeneration or retransmission path. HELO Plus has SRT built in as standard. There's 3 modes to SRT. One is called caller, one is called listener, and one is called rendezvous. We support caller and listener. And the only difference between the two is whether or not when you press go on the actual HELO Plus, does it start to stream? That's caller mode. Listener mode, the server at the other end says, please start to stream, and then it does the streaming. We cover both of those functionalities, both of those options in the box as standard as part of the product. So we added the listener mode at the end of last year. The first showing of listener mode was actually at NAB, but that's standard in the product. So RTMP, RTSP, HLS, SRT are all standard in the product as your choice of whatever protocol you want on any one of your particular outputs.
Okay, great. And yes, we got one question here from Frank, just asking about the dual channel encoder. So he just wants to confirm it's only 2 options for one HELO, right? So 1 stream, 1 recording, or 2 live streams. Is that right?
Yeah. So it's two channels in. Those 2 channels get combined at the very front of the machine, and they then go through the encoding and streaming process. There are 2 separate encoders, though. So there's an encoder that's used for. There's 2 separate encoders, and there are up to 2 stream outputs. It's very powerful, so I want to choose my words carefully to make sure I answer Frank's question accurately. It has 2 separate outputs. One of them could be HLS, the other one might be RTMP. They get the same signal. That's that pre-combined signal of the 2 inputs. So there's one program going through the box. It can go out 2 separate outputs. One as HLS, one as RTSP, for example. It's also then available to go down to the recorder. The recorder uses one of the encoding streamers. Oops, I guess I've got my reactions turned. I apologize for that. But this is another reason why you don't necessarily want a PC in the way of your stream. The HELO Plus will never put HELO-filled balloons across my stream. So 2 channels of video in, they're combined with the graphic. They're then sent to 2 separate encoders. Those 2 encoders can be used for 2 separate output streams, and you can choose either one of them to go down to the recording. So you can actually have 2 output streams and a recording happening at the same time. It's just the recording will be using the same settings as one of the encoders for the output stream. Doesn't matter which one. There's no main and backup. They're both encoders. You choose whichever encoder fits your needs for the recording. I hope that answers your question, Frank. If not, drop me another note and I'll make sure that I cover it in more detail.
Great. All right. Well, that's we don't have any other questions, so I think we can we'll sign off now. But Paul, it's been great talking to you, and great to hear more about the HELO Plus. And we did put a link into a tutorial we did on the HELO Plus last year. I recommend Robert Reinhardt did it. I highly recommend checking that out. But it was good to hear about some features and that are in it that it didn't have last October when we did that. So it's good to be brought up.
It's evolving because the market's evolving.
Yeah. And yeah, so before we go, the walk-up music, which was correctly identified by Frank Majanya, was Since You've Been Gone, Sweet Sweet Baby by Booker T and the MGs. Of course, a song made famous by Aretha Franklin. And please join us back here at 4 o'clock Eastern time for X Factor Cutting Cloud Streaming OpEx. Hope we see you for that.